Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Blaise XPerience once again. You are joining us for episode number 44 today. And episode 44 is a return to State of Decay 2 once again. So we will be talking some more State of Decay 2. Like I announced in the last podcast, this time we're going to return to the base game. We've been talking about Daybreak for about a month now, with different things in Daybreak, and we've pretty much covered everything about Daybreak. But there's still some stuff in the base game we've never covered yet. And that's why today I am going to talk about the long-awaited Meagher Valley. So we did previous episodes on the best base in Cascade Hills, as well as the best base in Drucker County. But we actually never did the best base in Meagher Valley yet, so that's what this episode is going to be. We're going to talk about Meagher Valley bases, and we are going to determine once and for all what the best base in Meagher Valley is today. It's been a little bit overdue, but I promised I would get to it, and today we are getting to it. But before we get to talking about the Meagher Valley bases, we do have some announcements as usual at the top of the podcast. So, real quick, we are going to have our next episode on Wednesday. We'll return to our Wednesday episodes as usual. This week we were on a break because I was doing some other things, and I was spending some time with family, but next Wednesday we will actually have another Vigor podcast. Vigor recently had a massive update. They called it Update 0.6. So we're going to talk all about Vigor's latest update. And this update really changed the game a lot. So we're going to go through that update and tell you about what's new with Vigor as it stands right now. So that's next Wednesday's episode. Of course, next Saturday we're going to have another episode as well. But we also have a bonus episode coming. And that will come to you hopefully on Sunday. So the day after this releases, you'll hopefully have a bonus episode as well. And that bonus episode is going to be on Undead Trials. So Undead Trials is the next State of Decay community event. That event is coming next week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week, from 10/29 to November 1st, we will be having Undead Trials. This is an event that myself and Mr. Dart's broadcast put together. Go check him out on Twitch, please. He's a great streamer on Twitch, so definitely go check him out. But him and I organized this event, and it's going to be a really fun event. We will have a bonus podcast with him and I talking about the whole event, so we'll go over the rules of the event. We'll kind of go over, the scoring, how everything's going to work. So that way everyone knows, once and for all, before the event starts, how everything's going to work with that. And in terms of me, I will actually be streaming 3 4-hour streams next week. So next Wednesday, I'm going to be streaming 11:45 a.m. to 3:40 p.m. Eastern Time. And that will be my solo run, because Undead Trials is going to be both solo competition and a duo competition. My duo run will be on next Thursday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. And then also, I'm very happy to announce that on Saturday, November 3rd, I'll be streaming from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., and this is going to be part of the Extra Life charity stream for Undead Labs. Undead Labs is helping to support Extra Life, which Extra Life is a great charity that helps children that really need it. So it's basically sick children, and gamers stream and play games to help the sick children. And it's kind of a charity where gamers can kind of give back and help children that really need it. So I'm really looking forward to supporting this charity, and there will be information for you next week during our streams as well, during the Undead Trials, to help donate to this event if you want to. It's obviously not required that anyone donates, but if you have a little bit of extra money to donate, then it goes to a great cause, and it really is going to help these kids. So definitely consider that if you have any extra money to donate to them. But that will be on Saturday. Undead Labs will be hosting a all-day stream, basically, where different streamers, either Undead Labs developers themselves or streamers from the State of Decay community, will all be streaming all day long, and you'll get to see those and, just enjoy that. And if you can't donate, that's fine, but at least try to show up sometime during Saturday to support the event itself. And in terms of the Undead Trials event that's going to be happening that Mr. Dart and I are putting on, this is an event that, like I said, is going to crown a solo and duos champion. There will be prizes for this event as well. We will announce the prizes officially on the bonus podcast, but we have them pretty much settled now, I think. So there's going to be surprises for the streamers involved, for the people that actually win the competition. And it's basically going to be a points-based competition. So we're going to reveal how we're actually going to work the scoring system. But essentially, whoever gets the most points will win. And the winners will get prizes. So, show up to the event and support your favorite streamers and kind of just watch us compete against each other. It's all going to be in good fun. It's not going to be a super serious competition where we're like going, toe to toe, aggressively at each other or anything. It's just going to be, a fun nature competition where we all just try to do the best we can. And whoever did the best, they get the rewards, they win. So just come have some fun with us next week. And it's going to be a great week. I mean, we're going to be celebrating Halloween by playing some State of Decay all week long. And right at the end of the week, we're going to have the Extra Life event for Undead Labs. So this is going to be a really fun week, and I'm really looking forward to the whole week. So I hope you all are as well. But without further ado, we'll get into that more on the bonus podcast. So we will get into the Meagher Valley bases on this podcast. So let's get right into it and start talking about the bases. And then after I talk about all the bases, I will rank the bases too. So we will have a ranking from 1 to 7. There's 7 bases in Meagher Valley, and I'll rank them, and we will definitively determine which is the best base in Meagher Valley. But our first base is the Country Church. Now, the Country Church costs 500 influence. It requires 4 survivors to claim it. The existing facilities there, it has 3 parking spots. It has clearable front pews and clearable rear pews, which turn into small slots. It has a community food bank. This basically stores food and meds, so it stores an extra 25 food and meds. It has a watch post. It also has a passive slot called Gorgeous Environment. That basically gives you a morale boost because the environment around it is so gorgeous. And honestly, it definitely is. I mean, the view from this church is amazing. And the open slots, it has 1 large and 1 small outdoor open slots. So in past podcasts and about, Cascade Hills and Drucker County, some of these 500 influence bases, I've kind of knocked them a little bit, but the Country Church is honestly the perfect example of what you want for a 500 influence base. Like, this base is really defensible because with this base, you can actually get all the way up on the roof of the church and you can see all around the base at all angles. So even without using the watch post itself, you can go all the way around the roof and just see every angle of the base, and it's really defensible. And that's one of the cool things about this base is not only do you have an amazing view, but it's really easy to defend this church. And I really like that too. And then even the insides look gorgeous too. I mean, you have, the pews, if you don't destroy them, those look amazing. You have kind of like the long elongated windows that you would see in a church where you can let a lot of light in. So the light just shines in perfectly and it looks really cool in the church. So this is a really cool base. And honestly, for the 500 influence, unlike some other bases in the other maps, this actually offers you a lot of value. It does offer you your 1 large slot, and then you have basically 3 small slots if you choose to clear the pews, which I would recommend you have to do, because I mean, as much as it looks nice to have the pews in there, it's kind of hard to use this base without clearing them. So you probably have to clear them just to at least have some room to do some things. But, I mean, in the past I've said, paying 500 influence for just 1 extra large slot isn't really worth it to you, which I still stand by that, but this base I think is a little bit different because this base offers you a lot more defensibility than the other bases have. I mean, even talking about, say, the bridge fort, for example, that's not as defensible as you think because you don't have as clear sight lines as you have with the Country Church. With the Country Church, you have very clear defense lines and you can see anywhere you want on that base just by getting on the roof and looking around. With the bridge fort, for example, I mean, it does have 2 ways in, which is nice, but getting up there on that bridge, it's not as easy to see all the angles as it is with the church. So even more than the bridge, I would say this is a lot more defensible than the bridge even. And I mean, maybe it shouldn't be a factor, but for me personally, it is a little bit of a factor with the view as well. The view from this church is so amazing that it's just hard to not, want to pay the 500 influence for it. For me personally, I would definitely pay the 500 influence to move to this base because although you're not getting a ton of value for just getting 1 large slot, you are getting that really nice view. You're getting a place that you want to actually, drive home to, and you get 3 parking slots, which that's an upgrade from your original base. You get an extra parking slot as well. But like I said, I mean, it's also very defensible. And if you get out that roof, like, there's not that many bases that you can get up on top of the base and see all around the base, just by looking around. There's a few of them, but this is one of the few that actually allows you to see all the sight lines you want to see. And probably the biggest knock, I would say, is the community food bank. The fact that it, gives you extra food and med storage. I mean, to some people that might be nice, but for me personally, I think that's what you want the least amount of storage of, because you go through food and meds so often, and you find it in the world so often that you don't really need a lot of storage for it. What you want more storage of is the things you don't use as often. So you want more storage for fuel. You want more storage for materials, maybe ammo. Those are the ones you want more storage of. Food and meds you don't really want more storage of. So while I understand the concept of it, being at a church, it just doesn't really play well functionally. So, the church, I mean, I can't say it's like a groundbreaking base that's going to be able to do everything you need. But for what it is, it's a pretty good base for what it is. I mean, 500 influence, it's pretty solid as a base. Moving on next, we have the Meagher Farm. Now, the Meagher Farm, it costs 1,000 influence, and it requires 5 survivors to claim it. The existing facilities, it has a well house, which provides clean water, a country kitchen, which provides knowledge of cooking, a crew house, which has 4 beds in it, a grain silo storage, this basically stores a ton of food, 2 parking slots, and then it has a passive slot, which is fertile soil. This basically just increases your yields. And then the open slots, it has 2 large slots, 1 small indoor slot, and 2 small outdoor slots. So honestly, for the value you get, at 1,000 influence, this is pretty good value, because there's some bases that, would cost you 1,500 in other maps to get that same value. So that's a good thing right there. It does already have a kitchen, so you can make your snacks, you can make your coffee in there if you wanted to. It's got very low parking, though, which is a big knock on it. I mean, only 2 parking spots, that's not really ideal, and a lot of bases can do better than that. So it's not very ideal for this to only have 2 parking spots. So that is a huge knock against it. The view of it, though, it's an amazing view, just like, the church was. It's really aesthetically pleasing, and it's nice to be there. One of the biggest draws to Meagher Farm, though, is more than any other base and any other map, this is in the dead center of the map. Like, you could not get any more dead center than this base, basically. So, this is a dead center of the map base that's really going to help you out in that sense, because anywhere you want to go, if you're leaving from Meagher Farm, you're pretty much, a lot closer to getting there than other bases. And again, the silo storage, storing a ton of food, I mean, that's not something I really subscribe to a lot, because you don't need to store a ton of food. I mean, you're going through food so much that you don't need a ton of food storage. You need storage for things that you don't go through as much. But in terms of the slots you do have, they are going to get used up pretty fast. I mean, you need your workshop, you're going to need your infirmary, you're going to need, a garden or something like that to make food. So that's 3 of those slots already taken up by that. It is nice that it has 4 beds stored in at least. That's something to get you started, but it's not going to leave you a ton of options because it doesn't have any of those, facilities you already need stored in there. But honestly, the Meagher Farm, I mean, there's not a ton that's like really bad about it. Like, you basically have, and that's one thing I'll say with the Meagher Valley bases. It was so hard for me to actually rank these bases. You'll get when I get to the end, because Meagher Valley, I would say, pound for pound, if you put Meagher Valley's bases against Cascade Hills bases, against Drucker County's bases, Meagher Valley overall has the best bases, I would say. Because even the base that I ranked number 7 is still not a bad base. Like, Meagher Valley does not have a bad base. So if you're thinking, like, oh, shoot, I picked the wrong base to settle at, you didn't pick the wrong base. There is not a wrong base at Meagher Valley. There's no base that I would say, like, oh, you picked that one? You might not want to pick that one. The other maps have bases like that are really not going to help you, and they're not going to do anything for you. But Meagher Valley doesn't have that. I mean, any one of these bases, if you play at any one of these bases, you'll have a great experience, and it's a good base to play at, and you can actually make it viable for your playthrough. So don't think that, when I'm ranking these after or when I'm nitpicking, any of these are bad in my mind. Basically, in order to rank them, I had to find spots to nitpick these bases just to have, some way to rank them against each other. So a lot of the negative comments I'm making on these bases are more me nitpicking them than me really thinking they're bad. Because I would be happy to stay at any of these bases. And there's definitely some great bases in Cascade Hills and Drucker County too, but there are also very bad bases in Drucker County and Cascade Hills as well. So with Meagher, there's not really any bad bases in my opinion. Which I know there's one base that people traditionally hate in this map, but I mean, as much as people like to, rag on that base, it's not that bad of a base overall, but we'll get to that base afterwards. But yeah, Mazzara Farm, I mean, it's only got 2 parking spots, which no one ever likes that, because you want more parking spots. You can make it work, obviously, by side parking your cars and things like that. The grain silo storage is not really needed because you don't need the food storage. The well house providing clean water, I mean, if you're a newer player, that might help you out, but for a lot of players, having the clean water is not really that useful to you. Having a kitchen is nice sometimes. I mean, some players don't really utilize it a lot, but it's nice to have it. But I mean, overall, it's not really a bad base at all. I mean, for 1,000 influence, it's got pretty good value to it, and it's definitely a base that I would think is a solid base. So there's just a couple things about it that, I would change if I was making the perfect base, but it's definitely not a bad base at all. Next, we have the Clarington House, and the Clarington House is the starting base in this map. So it's basically the same thing as the other 2 starting bases. It's got your 0 influence to claim it. It takes 3 people to claim it, which I believe, I mean, you always start out with 3 or more when you start a game, so I'm not sure if you had less than 3 people and you move maps, if you could actually still claim it. I would assume you could, but I've never officially tried it. So I guess one of these days I'll have to, kill off my people and try to claim it with less than 3 people, but I would assume you're allowed to. The existing facilities, it has a chef's kitchen, a master bedroom, a double bunk room, 2 parking slots, clearable trash, and it has 2 small outdoor open slots. So basically you're going to clear that trash away, you're going to get a 3rd open slot outdoors, and then you're going to have 3 small outdoor slots. And I said it on the last base podcast, I'll say it again in this one, Undead Labs did a great job designing the starting base, because the starting base, it offers you so much functionality for what you need starting out, and you can't officially end your game here because you need a large slot in order to officially end your playthrough, but even though you can't officially end your game at one of these starting bases hold up really well, and you could go several days at these starting bases and never want to change, or never have to change, because you probably want to change another base, but you wouldn't have to. I mean, if somebody, made a challenge for me, okay, you have to stay at the starting base until you kill all the play cards, for example. I could definitely do that easily. I mean, the starting base is very viable, and it can really make things work for you. Even for a medium-sized community, if you had, say, 6 or 7 people, you could still make 6 or 7 people work at this base. Now, it wouldn't be the easiest thing in the world. I mean, you'd have to supplement things with outposts. Like, you might have to get some beds outposts just to make that work, but you could still make it work if you wanted to. So, these, starting bases, I mean, they're not that much different from the other starting bases because they're all basically the same thing, just they look a little bit different, but they function very well, and for 0 influence, it's honestly a great value. However, the one thing I'll say is, compared to some of the other bases in this map, this starting base doesn't hold up as well as the other ones, because in the other maps, there were some pretty bad bases, in my opinion, and because of that, the starting base looked a little bit better. In this one, the starting base looks like a starting base, so that might give away a little bit of my rankings, but, that's kind of where I feel about the starting base in this one, so it's definitely, very solid for what it is, and I don't really have anything bad to say about it, because for a starting base, you want it to be something that can carry you to the mid-game and sustain you very well. It does that, so it does its job. Next, we have Camp Kalunkwa. Now, Camp Kalunkwa, it takes 1,000 influence to claim it. It requires 5 people to claim. The existing facilities are heavy trash, which is clearable, cafeteria kitchen, an old well which provides water, 2 parking slots, a bunkhouse, a seating area which is clearable, and it has a passive slot with built-in beds. It has 4 total beds built into the cabins. And the open slots, it has 2 large open slots and 2 small indoor slots. So Camp Kalunkwa, it's another one that for 1,000 influence is pretty good value, honestly. If you clear away those clearable slots, then you have some extra small slots, so you're going to have a lot to work with. You're going to have 2 large slots and then 4 small ones, so that's pretty solid there. The 2 parking situation, again, kind of sucks. I mean, having 2 parking at a base, it's not really that great, so it's probably good that it's not 1,500, because if I pay 1,500 for this base, I'd probably be a little bit upset, honestly. The old well, again, if you're newer to the game, then having that provide water for you is nice, but if you're someone that has a little bit of experience in State of Decay, it's not going to be something that really benefits you a lot to have that later in the game. The kitchen, again, is kind of a novelty. I mean, some people, use the kitchen a lot, some don't. I typically don't play bases anymore that have the kitchen built in, just because I have other functions that I try to go for, but I mean, the kitchen's not a bad thing at all, so. But the passive slot having 4 built-in beds, that really helps this out, because having those built-in beds in the cabins, it saves you a little bit of work, so you don't have to actually build as many beds in your community. And yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to say about this one. One of the other knocks I have on a personal level is all these, slots, like the small indoor slots, for example, they're in separate cabins, so on a personal level, I don't like that much. I understand why it works that way, but it just doesn't function well on a personal level, because if you're going to, where's your infirmary? Oh, it's in, the 3rd cabin on the left. Like, it's obviously not that hard to find it, but it is kind of a pain sometimes that, okay, somebody's in your game with you. Oh, where's your infirmary at? It's in one of the cabins. You have to look for it. And they go into 3 different cabins before they find it. So it can be kind of annoying to find the items that you have. Or not the items, but it can be kind of annoying to find the facilities you have in your base, because everything's not compact in one area. It's all spread out more. And it's all enclosed too. So it's not like, say the baseball field where everything's out on the field where you can kind of see it. It's enclosed in a building, so you can't really tell what's in where. So that is, kind of a pet peeve on this one. And like I said, a lot of these bases are, very viable bases, so I had to kind of nitpick, and that's one of the nitpicks I have with Camp Kalunkwa. Some other people might not have that nitpick. They might like that, being more spread out, but personally, I don't like it as much for playing. And another thing is, this base is basically in the southwest corner of the map, and there's nothing around it. So the fact that there's nothing around it besides the lake, which the lake does have, a little bit of a secret there. I won't spoil that, but besides the lake, there's not really a lot around there, so you can't really get a lot of resources there, and that's kind of what pushes this base down too, is because there's not a lot to loot around there, and it's not really centralized in the map. Which, real quick too, the Clarington house is towards the east of the map, the Mazzara farm is dead smack in the middle, and the country church is basically in the northwest of the map. Just to say where those are located geographically. But yeah, Camp Kalunkwa, I mean, it's not a bad base. Like I said, there's not any bad bases in this map, but it's a base that I wouldn't really choose personally, because it's kind of divided on where your facilities are placed, and the location is not very good, because you're way away from a bunch of stuff to search, so you can't actually search a lot of resources. And not only that, there's only 2 parking spots. So personally, this is more of a novelty base that I'd, try it out for a little while. Oh, look, I'm at a camp. This is kind of cool. I'm at a camp. But that would wear off after a couple of days in game. After a couple of days in game, I would leave this base and move on to something else. Next up, we have Squalone's Brewing Company. So Squalone's Brewing Company is 1,500 influence to claim. Needs 6 people to claim it. The existing facilities, it has a water tank, which will provide you with water. It has a keg cooperage. This is clearable. It speeds facility builds, and it acts as a staging area. It's got a primary still, which can convert food into fuel, ethanol, or beer, and convert ethanol into fuel. And then it has a craft still, which does the same thing. Can convert food into fuel, etc., etc. And it also has 3 parking spots. It has a unique facility called the Tasting Room. The Tasting Room will provide you with a unique combination of morale boosts and crafting options. So, for example, you can craft 9 Molotovs for a small portion of fuel. I believe it's 2 fuel for 9 Molotovs. I could be wrong on the exact numbers there, but I believe it's 2 for 9 Molotovs, which is a pretty good deal. You have a passive slot called Brewer's Notebook. This gives you knowledge of chemistry. And then open slots, it has 1 large slot, 3 small indoor slots, and 2 small outdoor slots. So Squallone's Brewing Company is one of the better bases in Meagher Valley, I would say. One of the knocks against it is, fairly obvious that people might point out. It only has 1 large slot. So that is one of the knocks against it. But I'll tell you why that doesn't matter as much. Because for large slots, a lot of the time, if you're, an experienced player, one of your large slots is going to be a staging area. Because that staging area, that covers the cost of all your facilities that are costing you materials. So if you have a facility that gives you -1 materials per day, if you have another facility that gives you -1 materials per day, that can add up pretty fast, and you could be losing a lot of materials. So say you added those things up and you get, -3 materials per day. If you have a staging area, that covers all of that, and you don't have to worry about, your facilities taking up materials. So basically that staging area will bring that back to 0, and you wouldn't be spending any materials per day on those facilities. So for a lot of experienced players, in their bases, they're going to have a staging area automatically because that staging area makes it so they're not losing materials. And the keg cooperage, this is clearable, but I'm going to say right now, do not clear it. It's clearable, so you can clear it if you want to, and you can make a large slot, which this is one of the only things in State of Decay that you can clear it for a large slot, by the way. Or most of the clearable slots are small slots, but this one you can clear it for a large slot. However, I'm recommending you don't ever do that because, for one, this acts as a staging area automatically, so you're going to be covering the cost of materials there. Number 2, this gives you speed facility builds, so basically you can speed up your build times with this. And number 3, the keg cooperage just looks better because aesthetically, if you clear this and you make a staging area anyways, the keg cooperage looks better than a regular staging area would. So there's really no reason to ever clear this. And because of that, the fact that it only has 1 large slot doesn't matter as much because basically you already have your staging area built in, essentially. So if you already have your staging area built in, you have one of the large slots to use. So obviously it's not, the most large slots in the world, but it's still very useful. And for example, in this map, I'm currently at this base, and I'm definitely making it work very easily. You can easily make this work and make it viable where you're not losing anything per day. Like in my 1 large slot right now, I have a farm. I have a farm level 2, and I'm using a compost bin, boosting the yields of that farm, so basically that farm's taking care of my needs. But the other cool thing about this base is the red talent facilities that were just created for the Daybreak DLC. You can actually get the achievement at this base because there's one achievement where you have to build all 4 new facilities, not counting the Clio Relay. So they were talking your Red Talon Bunk Room, you're talking your Red Talon Watchtower, your Red Talon Workshop, and your Officer Quarters. You have to build all 4 of those in one base to get the achievement. This is one of the few bases you can actually do that in because you need 2 small indoor slots and 2 small outdoor slots in order to do that. This base has that, so you can do it in this base. And there's not a lot of bases that can do that. Like, one of the bigger bases in this map, you can't do that on because it doesn't have the indoor slots. So a lot of bases don't have 2 small indoor slots. And that's why a lot of bases can't do that achievement. So if you're looking for that achievement, this is somewhere you can get it. Now, the 3 parking slots, it's definitely better than some other bases have. But it's obviously not ideal. You want 4, ideally. But it's definitely not horrible. It's not 2, so it's better than 2 at least. And these stills, I think it's just for aesthetic reasons they have the primary still and the craft still because they don't do anything different. So I don't really understand why there's 2 stills in terms of functionality, but, they're there. I mean, I guess per se you could, use one still to convert food into fuel and then use another still to convert ethanol into fuel or something. But so I guess you could do both at once to create more fuel or something like that if you wanted to. Or, use one to create beer and use one to create fuel. But I don't think there's a lot of times where you're going to have enough resources to be doing, both at once consistently. But maybe, there's some players out there that are using both consistently and just, pumping out tons and tons of fuel or pumping out, tons of beer that they can sell to traders. But for me personally, I just usually use one. So I don't usually use both at once. What's interesting, though, is this tasting room. Honestly, that tasting room is a very unique facility, and it's not something you can find anywhere else in the game, in any map, so it's really unique to this base. And it can provide you some extra morale boosts, and the crafting options are actually pretty good. Creating 9 Molotovs like that, that's pretty cheap for how much you have to spend for it. If you have some extra fuel, you can just get rid of it by creating a bunch of Molotovs, and that's really cool, actually. And in the Brewer's Notebook, giving you knowledge of chemistry, I mean, the knowledge of chemistry I'm not, hugely concerned with, but it's nice that it gives it to you at least. But yeah, honestly, the brewing company is honestly one of the best bases, I mean, in this map. The biggest knock on it is probably that it only has 1 large slot and that it has 3 parking spots instead of 4. But overall, the brewing company is something that you can really sustain a playthrough for a very long time. I mean, if you wanted to do a playthrough of 100 days at the brewing company, you can absolutely do that, no problems asked. So you can, I have a 10-person community there right now, and my 10-person community is perfectly fine at the brewing company. I'm not losing any materials per day. I'm not losing any food per day. I'm not losing any fuel per day. So you can sustain a huge community at this base. You don't need, the 3,500 bases just to have a big community. You can do it at the smaller bases. It just has to be the right base in order to do it properly. But yeah, the brewing company is amazing, and I would definitely give that one a try. Next up, we have the Rural Police Station. And this is another base that is one of the better bases in this map, and it's really awesome, honestly. It's 1,000 influence to claim it. It requires 5 people to claim it. The existing facilities has 4 parking spots. It has a police armory, which allows you to make ammo and throw consumables. It has secure lockers, which gives you fire-safe storage. It has a checkpoint, which is basically the same thing as a watchtower. It has doorless cells, which provide 4 beds and a morale penalty. And then for open slots, it has 2 large slots, 1 small indoor slot, and 2 small outdoor slots. Now, for 1,000 influence, you can't get much better value than this. I mean, it has 4 parking slots, which that's amazing in itself. 1,000 influence for 4 parking slots, that's great. I mean, we just talked about some of the bases that had 1,000 influence for only 2 parking spots. Or Squellones, that only had 3 parking spots and you pay 1,500 for it. So having 4 parking spots is really nice for this rural police station. And the checkpoint, I mean, it's basically the same thing as a watchtower pretty much. It's not hugely important. The fire safe storage, though, having that automatically built in, that's really key because, in my opinion, the fire safe storage is the best one you can have. Because having that extra storage of ammo and fuel, those are things you want to store extra of. You don't really want to store extra food and meds. The doorless cells, I mean, the morale penalty, I wouldn't really worry about that much. And the fact that it provides you 4 beds at the start, that's solid. Some bases don't provide you any beds at the start, so that's very solid indeed. In terms of open slots, I mean, you have 3 small slots and 2 large, so you can't go wrong with that either. I mean, those are great, options for slots, and that's definitely great there as well. But the kicker with this base that I didn't specifically mention yet, because I was waiting for last, is the police armory. You can make ammo and throw consumables here, and especially for players that are newer, this is huge, and this is a game changer, because if you're a newer player, a lot of the experienced players probably have the rifle ammo mod. They already have, the handgun ammo press. They already have the heavy-duty ammo press. But if you're a newer player, you don't have all those presses yet. So, for anyone that's experienced, think back to when you didn't have all those presses and you couldn't make whatever ammo you wanted. Well, that's why this armory in here is so key, and it's really nice for newer players because I remember when I was still a newer player at this game and I didn't have some presses yet, I could use this armory to make any ammo I wanted. It was really nice because I think early on I was missing like the shotgun ammo press at one point, and I was using this armory to make shotgun ammo. So it's really nice. So that is really key, and even for experienced players, it's still valuable for experienced players because even for someone like me, I have all the presses, but this is so much easier to just use the armory and not have to, okay, all right, I got to uninstall this mod from my workshop. I got to reinstall the shotgun ammo press. All right, now I have to uninstall the shotgun ammo press. Now I have to install the rifle ammo press. You know, it's a lot less tedious to just use the police armory. So it's very viable for experienced players as well. And honestly, I mean, I can't think of really anything bad to nitpick about the rural police station. I've been trying, and, you know, before I started recording, I've been trying to think of nitpicks for all of these, and it kind of tips my hand a little bit, but I can't think of too much to nitpick about this. I mean, it's got your 4 parking spots. You know, it's got 2 large slots. It's got 3 small slots as well. It's got a police armory for you. It has the best storage that is available in the game, in my opinion. So there's not really much more I want at a base, and this is a great base for sure. I mean, one of the things is it won't allow you to do like a full Red Talon base because it doesn't have the 2 small indoor slots. So for example, if you wanted to have, you know, a Red Talon bunk room and a Red Talon workshop and officer quarters all in your base, you really can't do that because you don't have the indoor space for it. So that's one knock, is that you can't make like a full Red Talon base if you wanted, and you also can't get that achievement for the Red Talon achievement. But I mean, you could just get the achievement somewhere else and then move here if you wanted to. All right, but last but not least, we have Whitney Field. Now, Whitney Field is the base that it seems like a lot of people trash on a lot of times. And I think this was, you know, early on when the game first came out. I think why the Whitney Field got a little bit of flack from some community members is because compared to the other big bases, the Abandoned Strip Mall and the Container Fort, it seems like Whitney Field is a worse base. Which I'll go on record of saying, compared to those other 2 that we just talked about, this is a worse base in my opinion. But it's not as horrible as people make it out to be. It costs 3,500 influence. It needs 8 people to claim it. The existing facilities has shelter beds level 2, outdoor beds level 1, outdoor beds level 2, 4 parking spots, 2 sets of fortified bleachers, which are reinforced with scavenged junk, and they basically act as a lookout point. It has an announcer box, which is a unique facility that can draw zombies in or blast white noise to hide from them. It's got open slots, 3 large slots, and 2 small outdoor slots. And honestly, the Whitney Field isn't a horrible base, but for the value, it's not great value because 3,500 influence for this, it's not any kind of value that you're really going to want. I mean, let's just look at the bed situation. You got way too many built-in beds already. You have shelter beds level 2, outdoor beds level 1, outdoor beds level 2. That's a lot of built-in beds that you could be using that space for something else. Same with the fortified bleachers, you know. Aesthetically, this stuff might look nice, but functionally, it doesn't offer you a lot of functionality. And the announcer box, it's kind of a nice feature, but basically, if you're looking for a fight, it's kind of nice, you know, bring the fight to you automatically. But other than that, it's not anything that's going to, you know, change things a lot for you. So I understand why people give this base some flack, because for 3,500 influence, you're not really getting much of anything that's going to do a lot for you. Maybe one of the only good things I can say, you know, about this base is it does have 3 large slots, and 3 large slots is kind of rare a little bit. I mean, obviously, you can get that at a big base, but I mean, Whitney Field is one of only 2 bases in the game that offers you 3 large slots. The other one is obviously the Barricaded Strip Mall. So basically, you have to use the Barricaded Strip Mall or Whitney Field if you want the large slots. So in that respect, it is nice that it has large slots available to you, but just comparing it to Barricaded Strip Mall, for example, Barricaded Strip Mall already has a built-in infirmary. It already has a built-in Taekwondo gym. It already has a built-in latrine. Like, it has all this stuff built in already, and then you get 3 large slots on top of that. So the existing stuff for Whitney Field, it doesn't offer you enough for existing facilities to make it viable. Because with the container fort, for example, the container fort offers you a lot of open space to choose what you want to do. The barricaded strip mall, that doesn't offer you a lot of choices, but it offers you a lot of built-in stuff already. Whitney Field kind of drops the ball on both accounts because not only does it not offer you a lot of choices what to do, it also doesn't really offer you anything viable that's built in already either. Because, for example, with the container fort, it already has 8 beds built in passively, and it offers you a lot more space. But with Whitney Field, you have 3 large slots and 2 small outdoor slots. I mean, you kind of want more small slots, honestly, because only 2 small outdoor slots, you're kind of hard pressed. I mean, you need an infirmary and you need a workshop, so basically there's your slots. Like, you can't really build anything else with your small slots because you need a workshop and you need an infirmary. So, I mean, you're basically done for. Unless you have the sheriff leader and you make a field hospital, that's probably one of the only ways you can get around that. So it kind of sucks in that sense. And also, you can't use this to get the Red Challenge achievement either with the 4 facilities in there because it has no small indoor slots. So I understand why people give the flack on this base because for 3,500, it's a horrible, it's a horrible deal. Like for 3,500, I could do so much more with 3,500 influence in the game than buying this base. So I don't recommend this base except to just try it out, once basically, and that's about it. But I think for Meagher Valley, there's a lot of other bases that are, more suited. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad base. It's definitely a base that you can play your end game at and you can win at the end game. But it's a base that does not offer you any value that you want for 3,500. There's bases that are 1,000 or 1,500 that offer you so much more value than this does. Heck, even if you make the other bases in this map 3,500 cost, I would still pick those bases for 3,500 over this base, just because they offer you more options. So that's my personal opinion on that. But Whitney Field, basically my stance at Whitney Field is it's not as bad as some people complained about, but it's definitely not good either, though. It's definitely the worst base out of the big bases, and it's definitely not top tier in this map either. Alright, now we've covered all 7 bases, so we'll get into our rankings. So, number 7 is the Clarington House. The Clarington House is your starting base, and unlike the other maps where I rank the starting base a little bit higher in the rankings, the Clarington House has to be number 7 for me in this map, and that's not a knock on the starting base in this map. I mean, the Clarington House is just as good of a starting base as the other 2 starting bases, but it's more saying how good the other bases are in this map. The other 6 bases in this map are so good that the starting base actually is the worst base, in my opinion. And, if you listen to the other podcasts, if you listen to, this one, obviously, you know that the starting base, I'm definitely a fan of how they did these starting bases. They definitely did a good job with those. So number 7 in this map is not saying it's a bad thing at all. It's just saying that the other bases are just simply better. But number 7 is our Clarington House. Number 6 is our Country Church. For a 500 cost base, 500 influence cost base, the Country Church is probably one of the top 500 cost bases in the game. I mean, you have other bases like the Bridge Fort, you have other ones as well, but I would probably choose the Country Church first out of the 500 cost bases. Just the problem is when you stack that 500 influence base against bases that are meant to be bigger, it doesn't stack up as well. Because the Country Church definitely functions amazingly well for what it is. But if you're comparing it to, a 3,500 cost base, if you're comparing it to 1,000 cost base or 1,500 cost base, it just doesn't do what those other bases can do. And that's not a knock on the church itself. It's just, it's not meant to do what those bases can do. The Country Church is meant to be a smaller base, and it's meant to sustain a smaller community. It's not meant to sustain, a 10, 11, 12 person community, which if you're creative, you can probably make 10 to 12 people fit in that base and, make it work for you using your outposts and using things like that. But it's not meant to sustain that. But the Country Church, I'll say again, it's one of the best bases to defend because you can sit up on that roof and just see anywhere on the base. And it's one of the best bases for, zombie attacks. So if you're getting attacked a lot and you're having a hard time defending your base, you might want to choose the Country Church because it's really easy to defend this base. Number 5 is Whitney Field. Now, Whitney Field, we talked about just a little while ago. Some people, like to claim it's the worst base. It's not the worst base, but it's definitely not the best either. I mean, there's 4 other bases that I can firmly say, the 4 bases on top of Whitney Field, I can firmly say I would rather choose any one of those 4 bases any day of the week over Whitney Field. Whitney Field, it's just really bad value for 3,500. However, if you take away the value of it and you just look at the base, like say there's no cost involved at all, you just look at the base itself, it's not a horrible base. It just doesn't offer you a lot that any other bases wouldn't. Basically, it has a lot of built-in beds, some fortified bleachers, and, here's 3 large slots. Have fun. The only good thing to say about it, really, is it has 4 parking slots, and it has 3 large slots, which there's only 2 bases in the game that have 3 large slots. This one and the Barricaded Strip Mall. So that is something positive for it, but like I already compared them earlier, the Barricaded Strip Mall just does so much more with those 3 large slots because it already has things built in. So I think what needed to happen with the Whitney Field is I think they needed to build in a facility that was least useful to you to make this work. Maybe instead of fortified bleachers, maybe they could have had the fortified bleachers somehow become a med site. So, I don't know, a fortified trauma tent or something like that. Basically, you needed something built into this base that actually gave you a little bit of a leg up. Because if this base had a built-in infirmary, that's 1 small slot you don't have to use an infirmary. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but having that 1 small slot free for the player to choose, that's really handy because even though it's technically, you have 2 small slots, you can do whatever you want with them. Technically, yes, but I mean, if you're an experienced player or even a lot of inexperienced players, no, you definitely need an infirmary. So, I mean, having one of those slots already taken up with the infirmary, it doesn't offer you a lot of choices. So I think this base should have had a built-in infirmary somehow. I think that would have really helped. But like I said, I mean, it's not a horrible base. It's not, as bad as some people like to think it is. It's just not a base that is worth using in this map. And I think that's where a lot of people let their feelings on it, color the base a little bit more than it should have, because I agree with the people that detract from this base that it shouldn't be used, but I disagree in saying that it's, a really horrible base or, going to those lengths, because it's not a base that goes to those lengths that really it can't be used with. So it definitely can be used. It can do everything you need it to do. It's just something that I don't think you'd really want to be here. You'd want to be other places instead. Number 4 is Camp Kalunkwa. Now, Camp Kalunkwa, I had some more nitpicks on this one. That's kind of why it's, middle of the road for me, number 4. It does have that issue where your facilities are kind of spread out. You don't really know where your facilities are because they're, in a cabin somewhere. So if you have friends join your game, it's kind of annoying and frustrating that, oh, hey, where's your infirmary at? Oh, where's your workshop? They have to look around for it a little bit more, which it seems kind of petty, and honestly, it is a little bit petty, but when it kind of speaks to how great these bases are on this map, because if I have to get that petty with bases in this map, that is a good sign. And that says a lot about the bases in this map and how good they are. So the other big knock, like we talked about, is the 2 parking slots. The 2 parking slots does not serve you well in this map. So, 2 parking slots, for 1,000 influence, it's still great value, but the 2 parking slots really detract from the space a lot. And the other thing that detracts from the space a lot is the location. It's basically in the middle of nowhere in the southern part of the map. And it kind of takes away from it right there. Which I just realized too, I forgot to say that Whitney Field is basically in the south of the map as well. That's kind of the center. The rural police station is basically in the center north of the map. So like all the way up north, but in the center. And Squalone's Brewing Company, that's basically over to the east, but it's pretty close to Meagher Farm. So it's almost in the middle of the map, but it's over to the east. So I do apologize I didn't mention the geographical locations of those bases. But number 3, we have the Meagher Farm. So Meagher Farm is pretty solid. It's a base that I would definitely be happy to stay at for, quite some time. But one of the bigger knocks that keeps this one at number 3 is the parking again. It has 2 parking spots. The location is amazing, though. Having it right dead in the center of the map, that is a great location. The scenery around that is really nice as well because you have the river right next to it. So it's definitely great scenery. The grain silo storage, storing the extra food isn't really something that I'm a big fan of because you don't really need it. But, I mean, this one I just had to nitpick a little bit. And pretty much, for the most part, the parking is what kept this one from being a little bit higher because I really had to get nitpicking on these bases in order to make a ranking. And the parking situation here is part of what keeps it at number 3. And then other than that, it doesn't really offer you a lot of, facilities that are helpful to you. Like the 2 that are above this, you obviously know what they are now. The police station, it has the armory, which helps you a lot. The brewery, it has the stills built in. It has the tasting room. It has the keg cooperage. So basically, when you look at those other ones, those 2 above this, they have interesting facilities that help you a lot more. The Meagher Farm, it doesn't really have anything that does a lot for you. I mean, it has the passive slot fertile soil, which is going to help your yields, but it doesn't have a lot that's going to help you further. The other 2 bases at the head of this, they offer you a lot more. So that's why Meagher Farm is number 3. Number 2 is Squalone's Brewing Company, which that's the current base that I'm at. So I think for me, Squalone's has to be number 2. And it's kind of because it has 3 parking slots where the police station has 4. It also has 1 large slot where the police station has 2. And then looking at the police station as well, the police station has that armory where the armory is going to help a lot of new players a lot more, where the brewing company has the stills, but the newer players in this game, they're not going to know what to do with the stills as much. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me that the police station had to outrank this one because the brewery, I love it, and it's really cool, and it's very interesting to play there. But I would say the brewing company is something that you have to be a little bit more experienced to make work perfectly. The police station is something that is, kind of sort of fun for all ages. Like you see that in posters and everything. It's sort of something that, experienced players, new players, in-between players, pretty much anyone can make the police station work pretty well. The brewing company, I'm not saying a new player couldn't make it work, just in order to make it work perfectly, where you're, getting plus materials, plus meds, plus food, where you're actually not losing anything, you have to be a little bit creative, and the newer players might not know all the strategies to be as creative with this base. So the brewing company, I definitely love, and it's something that I'm quite fond of, but it's a base that doesn't offer you as much as the police station does, because the 3 parking slots is definitely doable, but 4 is better. The armory is better overall than a still. I mean, the still can get you more influence and things, but the armory, it just, even for experienced players, that armory is better because that armory is going to save you a lot of time. You don't have to uninstall, a shotgun ammo press and then reinstall the rifle ammo press. Like, you don't have to go through all that hassle. With the police armory, you can just craft whatever ammo you want right there. It's really nice. Now, the brewery company has the tasting room, which is nice because that allows you some morale boosts and crafting options, but it's not good enough where it makes it outrank the police station for me personally. But the other thing with the police station too, which obviously, number 1 is the police station. I'll kind of talk about them side by side like I've been doing, but the other thing with the police station is it has a fire safe storage, and obviously you can make that at the brewing company, but the fact that this is already built into the police station, that's huge because the fire safe storage, in my opinion, is the best type of storage, and it already has that built in. So you can exile a character that, allows you to make the fire safe storage and still have it. Whereas with the Brewing Company, for example, if you got there and you already exiled the character you needed that had the skill requirement to make a fire safe storage, which I'm blanking on what the requirements are for fire safe storage, but it might actually be chemistry, which if it is chemistry as part of that, the Brewing Company obviously gives you knowledge of chemistry, so that might be a moot point, but even if that is true, it's still nice to have it already built in and not have to worry about it. So it's still better to have it built in like that. On top of that, the other thing too is the police station, it has 4 beds already built in. The Brewing Company doesn't have that. The Brewing Company has no beds built in already. So you're going to have to figure out that bed situation. I mean, if you're experienced, you can figure out that bed situation and make it work for you. Because I have enough beds for my people, I have enough meds, I have enough everything at the Brewing Company, but the fact that the police station already has 4 built in for you, that's huge. So I don't think there's any argument really here why the Brewing Company is better than the police station. I mean, the police station, just in every aspect, it outranks it. So I think the police station is absolutely the best base in Meagher Valley. So going through our bases one more time. Number 1, the Ruhr Police Station. Number 2, Squalone's Brewing Company. Number 3, the Mazzara Farm. Number 4, Camp Kalunkwa. Number 5, Whitney Field. Number 6, Country Church. And number 7, your starting base, the Clarington House. So those are our Meagher Valley bases. So hopefully that helped, and hopefully that helps everyone, have a better picture of what base is good and kind of what I think about them and why you should maybe not use some of them or use some more than others. Honestly, like I said at the top and throughout this podcast, all 7 of these bases are usable. Just, I would say, 1 through 4 are the ones you want to use most. The bases 5 through 7, the Whitney Field, Country Church, and Clarington House, I probably wouldn't use those as often, but they're still usable if you want to use them. I would definitely recommend checking out the Whitney Field and Country Church at least once, though, because they are cool bases to check out. But 1 through 4 are what I'd probably stick to a little bit more. But just going through our news quickly again, our next episode, once more, will be on Vigor. It'll be a podcast on update 0.6 for Vigor, because the full game is not out yet. It is still in game preview, so that's why it's 0.6. We will have another State of Decay episode next Saturday, of course. And obviously, next week is Undead Trials. That is going to be our event that I'm putting on with Mr. Dart. It's a community event that is going to be from Monday 10/29 to Thursday 11/1. It's a solo and duo competition that is point-based. There's going to be some prizes for the solo and duo champions. So, go support your favorite streamers. Maybe they can win and get some prizes. And then on top of that, we will have a bonus podcast coming out hopefully Sunday that will detail all this more in depth. It's going to have the rules of it. It'll have who's involved. It's going to have all that information for you on Sunday. So look out for that one, because the day after this releases, that will release as well. And in terms of myself, I will be streaming 4-hour streams on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Wednesday, I'll be doing 11:45 to 3:45. Thursday and Saturday, I'll be doing 1 to 5 p.m. And all those times are Eastern time, so just convert that to your time zone, but those are the times I'll be streaming next week. I'll be doing a lot to support this event, and of course on Saturday, November 3rd, don't forget that is the Extra Life charity stream that Undead Labs is putting on, and a lot of streamers and some of the developers for Undead Labs are getting together, and we're trying to raise money for sick kids. So Extra Life is a great charity. I've checked it out, and they help sick kids that really need help, so definitely check out those streams. If you can donate, great. If you can't donate, that's fine, but at least try to spend some time on next Saturday checking out those streams and just trying to support that and, kind of creating some hype, because the more hype we create, the better chance those kids have to get donations. But that being said, if you want to find the podcast, you're obviously already listening to it, but if you wanted to find it on a different platform, we're on Stitcher, we're on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. We're on Google Play, Google Podcast, Podbean, Blueberry, Radio Public, and we're basically on any directory that you can find except for Spotify. I'm going to try and work on that. But I will announce officially here now, we are actually on YouTube now. So I finally got us on YouTube. So check that out. Definitely check us out on YouTube. You'll only see 2 episodes up there right now, episode 33 and 43. But I'm going to work on getting the rest up there as well. But we are on YouTube now, so go check us out on YouTube. The link will be in the description. And on top of that, we actually have a Facebook group now too. So if you want to join our Facebook group, I will put that link in the show notes as well. Anyone's welcome to join. Just, request to join, and it's a closed group, so no one's going to see your post in there if you join. It's a closed group. Just request to join, and I'll list you in there. But we have a Facebook group now as well, and I'm going to try to get the podcast posted on the Facebook group as well. It's not officially on there yet because there was some kind of error, but I'm going to work on that as well. So we do have a Facebook group. We have our podcast on YouTube now, so those will be in the description. So definitely check that out, and I'm really excited to have both of those there. So definitely let me know what you think of that. And if you want to contact me further, you can obviously do so on our new Facebook group. You can obviously do so in the YouTube comments. You can do so on Discord. I'll put the Discord link in the description as well. Or if you want to, you can email me, BlaiseXPerience@gmail.com. And if you'd like to, you can contact me on Xbox Live itself or Twitter. My gamer tag in Twitter is the same exact thing. It's BlaiseXPerience. So, at BlaiseXPerience. Capital BLAISE, capital XPerience. Those are my Twitter and gamer tags. So definitely contact me and let me know what you think of the podcast, or give some suggestions if you'd like, or anything along those lines. But I hope everyone enjoyed the episode. I really appreciate you listening. So thank you as always for listening to the Blaise XPerience.